Hey there, this video is going to cover the writing equations test review. Each of these questions that I'm going to go over is on your test review, and each of these questions on the review are going to correspond to a question on the test. So this should really help you out in figuring out those questions. So to get started, question number 1. I'm going to use the graph below to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. This right here is telling you the format my answer should be in. So in this blank spot down here, I'm going to type in y equals, and then I'm going to put some number x plus some number. Now remember what m stands for. M stands for the slope of the line, and b stands for the y-intercept. Okay, both things that I can find from a graph. The very first thing I always find is my y-intercept because I think it's the easiest thing to spot. So to find my y-intercept, I go to my y-axis, and my dot is right here at -1. So in this blank spot, I'm going to type in -1. My slope is calculated by finding the rise over the run. Now I have two options. I can start at this point and call this point 1 and call this point 2, or I can do the reverse. I always like to make the point on the cut that comes first going left to right be my point 1, but it should give me the same answer either way, and I'll show you that. So to get from point 1 to point 2, I need to calculate my slope, which is rise over run. Remember, rise is either going up or going down. If I go up, I'm going to write a positive number. If I go down, I'm going to write a negative number. My run is moving either to the right or to the left. If I move right, it's a positive number. If I move left, it's a negative number. So to find my m is equal to, and I'm going to make a fraction because slopes are always written as a fraction, as an improper fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and start at my top point and count spaces. Now to get to point 2, I need to go count down. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces down. So -5 since I'm counting 5 spaces down. And then my run, I'm going to count to the right 1, 2 spaces. Since it's to right 2 spaces, it's +2. Now, what does that simplify to? Well, -5 over 2. I leave off the plus sign, but I do keep that minus sign, and I do keep that as an improper fraction. And in my blank spot, I'm going to write -5 over 2. So if I were to final answer, what is my answer going to look like? Y equals -5 over 2x plus -1, or you could write y equals -5 over 2x minus 1. So adding a -1 is the same as minusing 1. Now I told you that you could find the slope in reverse and say that this is point 1 and this is point 2. Let me show you how that works. If my rise if I want to go from point 1 to point 2, my rise is going to be going up to get to point 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. So on my fraction, I would have a +5 on top because it's going up. And I'm going to count to the left 1, 2. Because I'm counting to the left, I have -2, which simplifies to +5 over -2, which is the same as -5 over 2. If I type that in my calculator, I'm going to get the same number, -2.5. So either of those answers will work. Let's go on to the next one. So same type of problem. So let's just get in our head what I want. My answer is going to be y equals something x plus something. And I'm going to fill in these two blank spots. So I like to find my y-intercept first because it's easier. Just that one dot on my y-axis, that's at +1. So I put a 1 there. My slope, m is a fraction, so I'm going to make my fraction bar, and I'm going to calculate my slope before I decide to put in my equation. So if this is point 1, this is point 2, and I'm just moving left to right. That's why I decided which one was which. And to get from point 1 to point 2, I'm going to count up 1, so +1 on top, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces to the right, so +4 on bottom, which simplifies to, I don't have to write either of the plus signs, +1/4. And I'm going to leave my slope as a fraction, 1 over 4. And that is my answer. Okay, now that was graphs. Now, if I have 2 points, my process is going to be a little bit different because I don't have that visual picture to count spaces, and I don't have that visual picture to find where that y-intercept is. So, but I still can find them from this information. Now, if a dot is on my y-axis, okay, so let's say even it was right here, the x value is 0, and the y value is wherever it is on that line. So if this was at a tally mark of 1, I'd say 0, 1. What I want to just point out is this 0 right here means, hey, it's on the y-axis. So when I look at these 2 points right here, this right here represents my y-intercept because the x equals 0. And every problem I look at, and you'll see that throughout the rest of the examples, I'm looking for that x value to be 0. When the x value, whatever the y-intercept is, okay, the y-intercept is equal to that other number. So when x is 0, my y-intercept is 2 for this example. So y equals something x plus 2. My y-intercept, okay, remember this is the template that I'm filling out. I just want to replace m and I want to replace b. B is that y-intercept. So all I'm doing is taking out the b and replacing it with the number that I determined that it was. My slope is rise over run again, but this time I don't have a picture. So remember, I have my slope formula. From 2 points, I have to use that slope formula. So I've got the equation y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Remember, formulas, the way they work is I'm going to replace all the variables with the numbers. So I go to my points and I say, hey, this is an x, this is a y, this is an x, this is a y. This is from my first point, this is from my second point. Let's fill this fraction in. So here's my fraction bar. Then I go to my formula, y2. So I find my y2, which is 5. Find my y1. Well, here's my y1, which is 2. There's a subtraction sign between those two numbers, so I'm going to draw that subtraction sign in. For my second problem, x2 is 6. My formula has a minus, so I'm going to write minus x1, which is 0. And now I have to simplify so I know what my slope is. So 5 minus 2 is 3. 6 minus 0 is 6. And then I always simplify. 3 over 6 can be reduced. So I'm going to reduce it to 1 over 2. Now, just as a reminder, you do have access to the Desmos graphing calculator for this test. And if you're not sure if a fraction reduces, all you have to do is come to the Desmos calculator, type in the fraction your slope is, so 3 over 6, and then over here on the right-hand side, convert to fraction, and it will tell you what that slope simplifies to. It simplifies to 1 over 2. So what did I just find? I just found my rise over my run, which is my m. So in my equation where I'm going to put that, right in place of the m in front of x, so 1 over 2. Now that's all I have to replace when I write an equation. So my equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 2. So let's look at another similar problem. Make sure we got the hang of it. So I want to fill in this format. Remember, we keep the y. We're going to replace the m. We'll leave that blank. We're going to bring down the x and the plus. And I'm going to replace the b with my y-intercept. I always find my y-intercept first, because it's the easiest one to find. I'm looking for that x is 0. Here it is. So my y-intercept is 1. So in this blank spot where the y-intercept goes, I'm going to place a 1. My slope is my rise over my run. Remember, I'm going to use my formula, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. I'm going to make my fraction. I'm going to label them and plug them in. So -5 minus 1 on top and 2 minus 0 on bottom. -5 minus 1 is -6. 2 minus 0 is 2. And I can test that in my calculator to see what it simplifies to. -6 over 2. Or if you recognize that as -6 divided by 2, you'll know that it's -3. So my slope, okay, simplifies to -3. I did all that work just to know that that goes in this blank spot right here where my slope goes, so -3. So here's my answer. Put it right there. All right, 2 more. So on these last 2 examples, I'm going to find the equation of the line from a table. And so what I'm going to do is the same thing as I did on my last problem. I'm going to find the y equals mx plus b. I'm going to bring down the y. I leave it as a y. I'm going to bring down the x. I'm going to bring down the plus sign, and I'm going to replace all of the m, just the m, and just the b. Like I said before, I always find the y first because it's the easiest to find. I'm looking for an x value of 0. Here it is, dun, 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 my y-intercept. My y-intercept is 3. So I'm going to replace that b with a 3. To find my slope, I'm not just going to find it from, it's not just a number in my table. I find it from the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over to x2 minus x1. And to find my slope, I'm going to go in my table and say to myself, oh yeah, this is an x column, this is a y column. So if this is an x column, this is x1, this is x2, this is x3, this is y1, this is y2, this is y3. Now my formula doesn't say anything about y3 or x3, so I can ignore that column, that row I mean. To find my slope, we're going to replace it. So y2 is 5, y1 is 3, x2 is 5, and x1 is 0. So calculating my slope, 5 minus 3 is 2. 5 minus 0 is 5. Okay, I check to see if I can simplify my slope. You can always just do that. 2 over 5. And oh, it's still 2 over 5, so it can't be reduced. So I'm going to write that in there. And that's my final answer. All right, last one. To make sure I find my slope and my y-intercept, I'm going to follow the y equals mx plus b formula. So y, bring down my equal sign, leave the m blank, x plus b. So to find my y-intercept, I'm looking for the x value is 0. Now this one's kind of tricky because there's a 0 and there's a 0. Remember, to find my y-intercept, the x value has to be 0 and the y value is going to be my y-intercept. So I'm going to put a -6 in that blank spot. Now I'm going to find my slope. Remember, I got a label my x's. This is x1, x1, x2, x3. This is x1, x2, x3. Now, as I look at my table, I say to myself, I really don't like that first row. That first row has a negative in it. And I always kind of mess up when I have negative. So I'm going to erase that first column, and I'm going to say, oh, that readjusts these numbers to x1, x2, and y1 and y2. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug that into my formula. This is one you want to have handy. I have it written at the top of the test just because it is so used, but it doesn't hurt to have it written on your notebook paper. So plugging it in, here's my slope fraction. y2 is 6, y1 is 0, x2 is 14, x1 is 7. 6 minus 0 is 6, 14 minus 7 is 7, and if I check and see if it simplifies, I see that it doesn't. So 6 over 7 is my slope, and this is my answer. Now, to simplify it just one step further, I would probably write 6 over 7x, and instead of plus and -6, just write -6. But either of those answers should be correct. Hopefully that helps. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And we can go over a few examples together. Have a great day, and we'll see you later.